Participants, let's now go straight to our second plenary session. Focus on Ukraine, support and assistance in the wake of Russia's attacks. Please welcome your moderator, Olga Hakova, Deputy Director of European Energy Security at the Atlantic Council Global Energy Center.
With us for the second day of P-TECC, today's ministerial, and continuing these really important discussions. Again, my name is Olga Hakova. I run our European energy security work at the Global Energy Center. I am extremely pleased to host this discussion today with the most leading experts on Ukraine's energy security and support for Ukraine. Today's panel comprised of Roman Andarak, who is the Deputy Minister of Energy of Ukraine. We also have Kadri Simpson, who is the European Commissioner for Energy, Vladimir Malinov, who is the Minister of Energy of Bulgaria, Nicolae Comănescu, State Councillor of Romanian PM Chancellery, and Artur Lorkowski, who is the Director of Energy Community Secretariat. So, incredible lineup. So why are we talking about support for Ukraine during P-TECC? And I think the Secretary and others have mentioned this morning, that supporting Ukraine is not just a national priority, but we can't really talk about a broader regional security, regional decarbonization, and regional competitiveness without ensuring that Ukraine's energy system is also taken care of. Unfortunately, Ukraine is experiencing hours of blackouts, serious concerns around upcoming heating season due to Russia's unprecedented, unjustified attacks on the energy system, taking out half of Ukraine's capacity, 9 gigawatts of power. However, to Putin's disappointment, the allies and many of those who are here on the stage with us, many European countries and other allies around the world, the United States, have stood strongly with Ukraine and have continued supporting Ukraine. And today we'll dive into what the support looks like, where are the gaps, and what needs to be done in the near term, but also looking into Ukraine's future as well. Deputy Minister, maybe start with you. Give us some more insight into the current situation and what are the priorities for supporting Ukraine, especially when we look at this heat, this extreme heat right now, and electricity outages during this really, really hot summer.
Thank you very much, Olga, dear Commissioner, Minister, colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank you. Personal regards from Minister Galushenko, who has to cancel his participation at the very last moment because of the situation in the energy sector. But he is with us, and I debrief him regularly on our discussions. I'm also very grateful for bringing these issues on the agenda of this forum. I'm very much pleased to speak in the company of such good friends and such distinguished audience. As you rightly mentioned, the attacks, they take place daily, basically. Russia targets all sectors of our energy sphere, generation, thermal generation, base generation, maneuverable generation. They target transmission distribution system, underground gas storages. They attack renewable energy infrastructure. I think the next step would be attack sun and wind. Since the start of the aggression in February 2022, over 50% of our generation capacity has been destroyed, damaged, or occupied. Since March 2024, only since March 2024, 3 months have passed, due to massive targeted missile attacks comprising of hundreds of missiles, drones of different technologies, different precision, different damaging force. More than 9 gigawatts of generating capacity has been destroyed. As a result, we are experiencing significant deficit in the system, reaching 30%. 30% of the consumption of the needed power. Rolling blackouts take place daily, and daily around 7-8 millions, not even daily, for any single moment as I speak, 7 to 8 millions of Ukrainians are left without electricity. It's difficult for normal people, for normal families, but it's even more difficult for people with babies, people with kids, people necessitating medical care. It's detrimental to the economy. And just despite that, we are doing our repairs. We are running a vicious circle with repairing. As soon as we repair, Russia targets those facilities, and again in the bordering regions. When workers go out for repairs, they try to attack the energy workers. So the goal is to make us suffer. And we are able to withstand so far, mainly and gratefully to the assistance that we receive from European states, from the United States, from our partners, from Japan and others. So far, via the mechanism established by the Ministry of Energy, we received 1,320 shipments of different energy equipment goods, weighing totally 17.5 thousand tons. Just in the last weeks, we received 14 shipments worth of 131 tons. Overall, 36 countries expressed their solidarity and compassion and provided assistance. I'm talking only about specialized energy equipment. We are also very grateful to the Commissioner for the initiative for the establishment of the Energy Support Fund. It's been a real success. It's trusted by our partners, and it's been instrumental in providing materials for the repairs. Repairs take place daily. As I said, they are damaged, and it's not only about very sophisticated high voltage equipment. It's about very basic stuff like poles, cables, isolators, and so on and so forth. So far, the fund has accumulated 412 million euro from 14 countries and 2 international organizations. However, unfunded needs are much bigger. The needs include 5 million euro with almost 90 million on unfunded most critical or emergency equipment which is needed. In this situation, we are focusing on several directions. First direction is about physical protection and air defense. We need a lot of improvement in air defense and physical protection. There are smart solutions that we implement here and there. However, air defense, as I said, is key. Not probably the matter for this forum, but for discussions in different ones. Second direction is, as I said, repair. This is one of the cheapest options to put generation back into the system. And according to our calculations, investment of 180 million would put back more than 3 gigawatts of generation. We are also trying to implement, to make our system more flexible, more resilient by developing distributed generation. So far, around 500 megawatts of different projects of distributed generation are being implemented, with much more to come. And here we explore different options, financing options, purchase options, donation options. Important area of our work is providing backup generation for most critical facilities. By most critical, we mean water supply, water sewage, heating, healthcare, perishable goods. We understand that if the system is damaged so heavily during cold winter times, and if water supply is frozen, the territory will become unlivable people can live for certain hours without electricity for a day or two, but people definitely will not be able to live without water. If the system freezes, it will unfreeze only in spring, depending on the weather conditions. So far, Ukraine has received from our international partners an overwhelming 16,000 generators, 16,000 for all our needs. The basic need or critical need for the next winter is much less. It's 10% of that. We need 1,700 generators worth about 200 megawatts of capacity for those facilities that are not covered yet. It's a relatively small figure and could be easily covered by our partners or by already existing contributions. One of the tools that we have in our box is electricity import. So far, the electricity import is limited to 1.7 gigawatts, but we need to increase this capacity. Businesses are willing to buy electricity from the EU because not producing, not operating is even more costly than working on generators, and of course more costly than working on imported electricity. The government implemented policy for not to cutting off businesses that procure 80% of electricity from abroad. We also understand that we cannot cope without private sector, so we adopted a number of decisions that aim at boosting resilience of private households. This is so-called rooftop solar program, when we compensate financing for 5 years for private households for solar installations, thus letting them boost their personal resilience. We also provide reduced financing, so-called 579 program for small medium enterprises that would like to use solar for their businesses. We decided to simplify permitting procedures. Also, some financial decisions were taken not to abolish custom duties and VAT on import of energy equipment to reduce financial strain on the participants. So we are taking every step possible with advice from our partners, from France, what we can do in these situations. We see projects growing in different spheres. Even despite the war, we observe solar development, wind developers. Yesterday, with Minister of Energy of Iceland, we discussed geothermal projects in Ukraine. So there is big interest. It is important that we build this trust. And in that spirit, I would like to thank again for the solidarity, for the compassion. As I said, we are able to withstand mainly because of this solidarity from the European Union and from our transatlantic partners. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Deputy Minister, for being here, joining us here at P-TECC Ministerial. Commissioner Simpson, Deputy Minister has mentioned several specific ways that the Commission has supported Ukraine. I'm particularly curious about the latest tranche of 110 million that's going to Ukraine. Where's that money coming from? How will it be utilized to support the energy sector?
Good morning, everybody. And indeed, European Commission and our member states who started to support Ukraine and specifically Ukrainian energy system the very moment when Russia chose to target civil energy infrastructure. And this happened already in 2022. So since then, we set up together with energy community a dedicated fund, and we have been able to collect more than 500 million euros that are used to support Ukrainian energy infrastructure and the reconstruction of the energy sector. Saying that, since 2022, we have been able to transport via our Union Civil Protection Mechanism over 8,100 generators and close to 3,300 transformers. As Roman mentioned, altogether Ukraine has received 60,000, so that gives you the scale of our support. This May, when I visited Kiev, it was another wave of attacks where Russia was destroying almost all the thermal power generation. They were also targeting transmission lines, but also renewable projects. And we agreed with Minister German Galushenko that it is very important to send a clear message that we will step up our support, because Ukrainians need to know that despite what will happen with air defense, there is a chance that some of the power generation will be brought back online. Of course, in May we were in a situation where Europeans still campaigned for the European elections. So months ago, in June, we had European elections, and with very positive outcome. Our voters gave us clear mandate to continue our policies, to continue our strong support to Ukraine. And just last week, European Parliament, newly elected European Parliament, had some very important votes. One of these was taking place last Thursday when President von der Leyen got a very strong mandate for her next mandate. And she delivered a speech where she introduced her priorities. And one of the longest lasting applauses was when she once again assured that we will support Ukraine as long as it takes. So broad support among our politicians in European Parliament to continue this approach. And already in June, 27th of June, our leaders, all 27 of them, also agreed in the Council conclusions that we have to prioritize the support to Ukraine. So what we are doing now, the new Commission hopefully starts in December this year, their work. So I will be in office 3 more months, and my absolute priority is to deliver in our action plan that we have agreed to support Ukraine. And there are several actions. First of all, of course, we have to help Ukraine to restore what is restorable. So I know that Russians have been able to destroy lots of power generation beyond repair, but we are together with the energy community and with our member states providing financial and also in-kind donations, and we are looking into concrete projects what we can build up before winter approaches. And I know Artur is here in the panel too, so Artur Lorkowski will give you more details. Then, of course, we have to reach out all the companies. This is not anymore Commission standalone mission, but all our companies who do have, well, in-kind equipment in their disposal that we can transport to Ukraine. We have set up a very clear transport routes. We know how to deliver specific equipment to the locations where Ukrainians do need it, and we do have a very good operational cooperation with Ukrainian Ministry of Energy and Minister German Galushenko himself. And so the first one is well, raising the awareness of the scale of destruction. And one of the actions from our side was also decision to use Russian frozen assets to pay for these in-kind deliveries. Second is our cooperation with Ukrainian Energy Support Fund, and I'm personally reaching out to all the member states to request further donations. And third, of course, we have to prioritize also support that comes from European Union, from our power generators, and we are working together with European NSOE, so our electricity transmission system operators, finding ways to increase transmission capacities between continental Europe and Ukraine and Moldova, if this is necessary for the winter. And we want to make sure that Ukraine will be able to buy more electricity from EU in the upcoming winter. And finally, we are engaging also with our member states, well, namely Romania, Slovakia, because there are some electricity transmission lines that still we can upgrade, and they would be the game changers. So I think this is a perfect moment to hand over the microphone to Minister.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Commissioner. Really fantastic remarks and overview. Minister Malinov, Bulgaria's and Ukraine's cooperation, bilateral cooperation, and also broader regional cooperation has been critical at this really challenging time. Could you tell us more about the progress that's being made on potentially transferring some of the nuclear power plants to Ukraine, which, as we heard earlier today, could potentially help with closing the gap on that 9 gigawatts of power that's been destroyed by Russia?
Thank you, Olga. Thanks to the host and organizers for inviting me here. But before coming straight to your question, I would like to catch a little bit from the previous speakers. And energy sector is not working in an isolated mode. So from that perspective, that was also my position during the lovely dinner yesterday. And I said, and that was mentioned by Kadri and by Roman, air defense system. Ukraine needs to have a reliable, long-lasting air defense system, because otherwise repairing, rebuilding, restructuring the already attacked targets of production or generation facilities, they will become once again a military target of Russia. And we will get into this vicious circle, helping them, repairing, and once again, so both military support and energy support should go hand in hand, and this is maybe my message which I would like to pass to the audience, and having in mind that we are the US, EU, and the regional cooperation, this should be one of the priorities. And when we are helping Ukraine, we are helping ourselves. This is already seen, and knowing that the winter is coming, and okay, potentially there could be a significant demand of import of electricity for the Ukrainian market, that will have a significant impact on the markets around. And we have already seen that when there is an increase of import of electricity to Ukraine, the market prices are getting up. So from that perspective, helping Ukraine, we are helping the neighboring countries and neighboring economies when it comes to the competitiveness. That's the reason we are very supportive as Bulgaria, and very actively working in the dialogue on NSUE level, because we do consider that for the upcoming winter season, there should be, and we are supportive and in a solidarity mode, that the entry capacity of the electricity transmission system for the upcoming winter should be increased. And because this 1.7 giga nowadays far away from the needs which Ukraine will need. And coming to your question, I would like to share much more of my thoughts, but let's revert to that. Yeah, recently, for the last 3 months, we have constant meetings with German and the Ukrainian teams discussing potentially this transaction of the equipment of former nuclear project in Bulgaria, which will not be put in operation anymore, but we are very firm in that respect. What have been achieved, there was a technical visit of the Ukrainian team, thanks also to the support of the US government and US DOE, because their representatives were also part of this check how the equipment was safeguarded, protected, and we are expecting the report. And after that, because it was a satisfactory letter from German to me about the conditions of the equipment, and he was putting the stress that if this equipment is going to be transferred to Ukraine, their project, which I really believe in 3.5 years could be operational. And we went to the next phase, which is the purely commercial one. We have already exchanged several times the term sheet about transferring the ownership. And here is the place where I will turn to Kadri and to all the rest, because this is an equipment which we could get benefit from all the European funds, and this will be a real support on a long-term basis, because we should look on Ukraine not just of the current needs for the upcoming winter, but sooner or later, hopefully sooner, the restoration will start. And this nuclear facility will be something sustainable, which will help a lot to the Ukrainian economy, but also to the populations and to the one and each household. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. State Councillor Comănescu, Romania has been a steadfast friend and supporter for Ukraine's energy systems, Ukraine's energy security, but not just Ukraine, Moldova and other countries in the region. Could you touch on the importance of just broader regional security and integration, interconnection, and how these countries, these systems, they don't exist in a vacuum, and how it is important to look at broader regional energy security as we think through support for Ukraine?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome in your second day in Bucharest. I hope you are enjoying it. I'm really honored to be on this stage in this such a distinguished with such a distinguished colleagues, and I would like to give a brief overview of Romania's support to Ukraine. We started from the very beginning to support Ukraine, mainly in the first phase with the large flows of refugees from Ukraine. Almost 8 million cross our borders, and also to the current situation. From a perspective at the multilateral level, we provided and we've been supporting Ukraine in all the political aspects. Also, at the level of more pragmatic, the more pragmatic support that we've been giving to Ukraine, we've been providing a multi-dimensional support, as we call it here, and this covers, as the minister said before me, a package together with other partners. Mainly, just to mention last year's support that we facilitated the transit of the Ukrainian grains through our borders, despite the political pressures that we faced at that time, internal pressure, and you are aware about this. All this kind of pressure, political pressure, internal pressure, took place all across the countries in the region. The government, the Romanian government, took the right decision and allowed this transit of the Ukrainian grains through our borders. More than 60% of that goods crossed our borders at that time. Today, we continue to support support Ukraine, especially in facilitating the political and the political part of the processes that take place right now. We are happy with and satisfied with the results of the recent conferences that took place in Berlin, the recovery conference that took place in Berlin, also the discussions that the high-level summit that took place in Switzerland, and we are supporting and endorsing in full the President Zelensky peace plan. At the more pragmatic level, also on the energy sector, I know that in 2023 there were 8 requests for emergency energy aid, and we replied positively to that request together with our colleagues from Bulgaria. And also we coordinated well with our regional partners in providing the support that was requested from Ukraine. We always look at the to connect and keeping in the loop Republic of Moldova, because they are the second most affected country after Ukraine, and they are part of this process of energy connectivity at the regional level, especially. I think having this in mind, we need to continue this support, especially with the European Union, where there is this continuous support. The 50 billion euros that were announced last year for Ukraine, and also on their path to the European Union accession. I close here. Just maybe we can have more dynamic interaction. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your comments. Artur, we'll go to you next. The Energy Community Secretariat has played a phenomenal role in directing and collecting aid. We heard some just unbelievable numbers today. 17,000 tons of equipment moving to Ukraine, 16,000 generators. I mean, it's just the logistics of this just hard to comprehend. And we've also heard about the improvements in terms of getting parts, equipment, solutions to the right locations in Ukraine faster, in finding some opportunities to continue accelerating that process and the tender process. Could you give us some more insight on how the equipment is moving for the next couple of months, and where there's still opportunities to accelerate the movement of these parts?
Thank you very much, first of all, for having me today, and for this excellent opportunity for a discussion on Ukraine needs on one hand, and on how to support Ukraine before the winter. Despite a quite severe situation which Roman just depicted in Ukraine, I think I would like today share basically three positive messages. The first message is that after almost 2 years, as Commission said, of very active support for Ukraine, we know how to support Ukraine. So the system, international system of allies forces is in place, and they are the structures, they are institutions, they are processes which are processing all of this equipment you have just mentioned to be delivered to Ukraine. So the system is in place, and this is the value which we have been building for the last 2 years for strengthening the institutions being involved and strengthening the international cooperation in this regard. Just yesterday, we had G7 Plus coordination under the leadership of US and European Union. We exchange among ourselves, what are the needs, what we'll be doing, how to coordinate our efforts. But I also want to comment very much the work being provided by the Ministry of Energy by organizing and coordinating the process within Ukraine. And this is critically important, that we feel being led in the very professional way by the ministry, so that the process is being in the tough hand of Minister and, of course, Roman and other colleagues from the ministry. So the first message is we know how to support Ukraine, and we know, and we have proved to be very efficient, not only the Secretariat, but many other colleagues working for that endeavor. The second message, which I think is also very much positive, is that only money is missing. So this is still a gap in financing, but it's basically a very good message, because this is, we know how to support, but we miss money. We need resources, and resources are available, and we also have been proving so far that we are quite efficient in collecting the money. Commissioner mentioned €500 million already under the fund. USA government is also granting the direct support to Ukraine. Other organizations are doing. For good projects, there is money on the market, and there is a willingness from the governments, from the public institutions, to support this effort. So this is basically a very good message. Only money is missing, and that is the reason why we are still encouraging other actors to come. That is why we held together with Commissioner last week, meeting with the private sector, with the private companies, to encourage also them to step in and to step up the efforts to share available resources with Ukraine and to contribute to the fund, for example. And we see that this cooperation might have quite big potential. We already have under the fund private donors contributing. But what Commissioner said, we are also taking the money from the proceeds from the Russian frozen assets. This is not only the way how we can use the money which is being now accumulated and frozen from Russia in the European Union. We can also make Russia accountable, and I would like other partners to look at that option, especially US, and to think whether it would be worth redirecting this money to the support of Ukraine before winter. And the third message I want to share with you, that we have great support from the Ukrainian side. And there are a lot of different specific reforms and adjustments needed in Ukraine to make the support we are providing workable. Just will give you some examples. The gas generation units, they will be producing electricity. Gas is available in Ukraine. I hope soon money will be available to buy more of these gas turbines and gas pistons. But the price of electricity produced from that source will be much more expensive than the electricity produced from the nuclear or from hydro in Ukraine. So that is very much appreciated that the Ukrainian government is reforming the internal market, increasing the caps for electricity prices on the wholesale market, so that they are adjusting this market for the newcomers, and they are creating the space for the new generation units to come and to operate. The second example, just very recently, the regulatory authority of Ukraine adopted the market rules for the batteries and for the ancillary services to operate in Ukraine. This is a very important incentive for those who want to spend money for example, for battery projects in Ukraine, to come now, because they can get very extraordinary circumstances and conditions for making these projects available right now for the business. So there are the reforms, the tax exemption, which has been already mentioned by Roman, for the fund, which is being operated by the Secretariat, is making us is making 20% more money available, because the equipment which is being purchased abroad Ukraine, in the European Union and in other third countries, will be tax exempted from the VAT. It makes that the support could be much more efficient. So we are in a very difficult situation. We are running against the time. I hope we will manage, but I want to share with you these three messages. We know how to help. Only money is needed, and Ukraine is doing the homework, which is a very good message. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Artur. We only have a couple of minutes left, so this is going to be a lightning round, and I'll ask you to keep your answers to 30 seconds. Deputy Minister, you mentioned the frustration around, watching the equipment being repaired, watching Ukrainian workers risk their lives repairing this equipment, then just a couple of days later, having Russia destroyed again. What roles could the future sanction packages play in potentially deterring Russia? And this is going to be for all of our panelists tonight. Is there a way to design sanctions, communicate sanctions in a way that could be a deterrence to future destruction of Ukraine's energy infrastructure? 30 seconds.
Thank you, Olga. I will use those 30 seconds to make a few reactions to the comments, previous ones. On nuclear, Minister, nuclear is a crucial point for us. Our energy system is running and resilient mainly because of nuclear. So it's key project for us, and we hope for its successful implementations. We all need to also understand that equipment need to be provided at military scale. We cannot wait for repairs. We can stop repairing no matter the state of air defense, and this is something we communicate to all our partners. Small generation, distributed generations is our answer to those challenges. And finally, regarding sanctions, need to be deterrent. You rightly mentioned. Now, sanctions need to be put in such a way that Russia knows that it will be painful. I would like to deter the narrative that sanctions are not working. Sanctions do work. Sanctions are painful, but they need to be also preventive. And to finish, I would like to say that as Prometheus brought us fire and was punished, we cannot stop bringing light and heat back to our citizens. We need to continue working.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner.
Last month's 14th package of sanctions was agreed among our member states, and it was the first package of sanctions where natural gas or LNG transshipments were mentioned. I personally believe that in the energy sector we have a lot to do to get rid of the remaining imports from Russia, fossil fuels, and this was one thing that our President von der Leyen mentioned also in her speech last Thursday. What we have done so far in Europe is that we are bringing online more and more renewables. Last year was record year for solar and wind. Across Europe, 27 member states, we brought online 56 gigawatts of new installed solar capacity. In Poland alone, 2 gigawatts. And that is also an option for Ukraine. If Poland was able to install 2 gigawatts of solar panels across the country, then why not Ukraine? So yes, we have to increase our electricity trade. We have to restore the power generation capacity, but we have to bring online also more renewables, and we will do so.
Minister Malinov.
In my humble opinion, there are two main messages which should be delivered. First of all, when it comes to the sanctions, all the EU and energy community countries, we should focus on much more faster diversifying our consumption of Russian fossil or whatever energy commodities, just in order to be prepared very quickly to introduce sanctions, but to be ready our economies and our business and households to work in the proper manner. So the target of 2027 getting let's say, fully rid of Russian gas is one of the potential solutions. And secondly, but something like an emergency measure, is the already frozen Russian assets. Very quick way of finding to be monetized, and these financial resources to be used for the energy sector recovery of Ukraine right now, before even the winter.
Thank you, Minister. We're running against the clock. State Councillor, and then Artur for just the last couple of seconds.
We implemented in full the sanctions, and we are supporting them. That's beyond any doubt. But I just want to add to my previous intervention, we are very satisfied with our cooperation with Ukraine. I mean, we made some good progress last year after our G2G meeting, government-to-government meeting. We have made a progress on, and we focus a lot on the connectivity part, not only on the energy, but transportation is key in this process, not only for our bilateral, but also for the regional level, including Republic of Moldova here, and also for the future recovery and reconstruction process that will take place when this war, illegal war of Russian Federation will be over against Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Artur. Just a couple of seconds.
One sentence: using proceeds from the Russian assets is morally and legally justified.
What a great way to end this session. What an amazing discussion. We touched on how dire the situation is, but also how realistic it is for the partners to step in and be able to overcome the challenges that Ukraine is facing today in terms of immediate blackout challenges, in terms of preparing for the heating season, but also thinking through the midterm and long-term for its energy sector. We also talked about the importance of making Russia pay and what that looks like. And then, of course, reminding all of us that Ukraine's security is European energy security. I wish you all a successful conversations at the P-TECC ministerial. And thank you to our audience who joined us here in person and who is joining us online as well. Please give it up for our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga, for your moderation of such an important panel. Thank you all. This brings us to the close of the open door sessions of the 5th P-TECC Ministerial. For those who are joining us online, please stay tuned for the recording of the Green Cities panels on cities as laboratories for change and financing the transition at the local level. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we will adjourn for lunch. After lunch, the working group breakout sessions will begin at 12:30. Please join us for one of the 2 breakout sessions as following. In the Balcescu room, please join our breakout session on geothermal technology. In the Iorga room, please join our breakout session on nuclear energy. At 1:30 about, we will transition to the second wave of breakout session. Critical infrastructure and energy supply will take place in the Balcescu hall, and energy efficiency and renewable energy will take place in the Iorga hall. Thank you very much.